Today I will tell you a story that happened without forcing or asking for it. And that ended with a fantastic scene. The scene was my little cousin waiting for me with a condom in his mouth, ready to have his first time with a man. Stay until the end to know this story. So make yourself comfortable, and we invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate the little bell so you don't miss any video. Last summer, during a family vacation at my grandparents' country house, everything changed between Diego and me. We had always had a special connection. Since we were kids, we were inseparable. Although there was a 4-year difference between us, that was never an obstacle to our friendship. Being the oldest, I often saw myself in the role of older brother, protector, and guide in many of the things Diego was discovering in life. The cottage was a place full of memories. The long summer days were always filled with laughter, games, and endless talks under the stars. That time, however, there was something different in the air. Diego had grown up, and although he was still the boy I remembered, there was something about him that was new to me. His comments, the way he looked at me, even the way he behaved, seemed to reflect a maturity I hadn't noticed before. Are you liking the video so far? If so, leave us a like and subscribe. Let's keep going. It all started one night, after a family dinner that took longer than usual. Everyone seemed happy, relaxed, and while the rest of the family dispersed around the house, Diego and I decided to stay a little longer on the porch. The night was warm, and the sky was full of stars. It was the perfect setting for one of those deep talks we used to have. Have you ever felt different? Diego asked me suddenly, breaking the silence. His tone was serious, and although I tried to hide it, I felt my heart racing. I knew that question had something else behind it, something he was trying to express but couldn't find the words. What do you mean? I answered, pretending to be calm. Diego looked down at the floor, as if searching for courage in the wooden planks under his feet. Finally, he looked up and looked me straight in the eye. I don't know, it's as if… He paused, clearly searching for the right words, as if I don't quite fit in with what they expect of me. I felt a knot in my stomach. Diego wasn't just talking about fitting in general. He was trying to say something deeper. But I didn't want to push him. I knew that if something was trying to come out, it would come out in its own time. We all feel that way sometimes, Diego. It's part of discovering who we are, I said, trying to sound reassuring. That night we stayed up late talking. Diego opened his heart in a way he had never done before. He told me about his doubts, his fears, and how sometimes he felt he had to be someone he wasn't just to meet the expectations of others. I listened, feeling a mixture of pride and concern. He was brave for sharing something so intimate, but it also hurt to know that he had been carrying it around for so long. The next day, we decided to explore the area around the house. There was a small lake where we always went as children, and it seemed like a good idea to relive those moments. We walked around for a while, laughing and remembering anecdotes from the past. When we reached the lake, we sat on the shore, letting the silence speak for us. Diego looked nervous, as if he wanted to say something but didn't know how. Finally, he took a breath and looked at me. Sometimes I feel like I can't be myself with anyone, he confessed. With me you can, Diego. You can always be yourself with me, I replied, putting a hand on his shoulder. Before we continue, we invite you to give us a like and subscribe. Let's keep going. There was a moment of silence, one of those that don't need words because they already say it all. Diego nodded but did not look away. There was something in his eyes that I had never seen before, a mixture of vulnerability and something else that I couldn't quite identify. Then it happened. It was an instant, an impulse neither of us planned. Diego leaned towards me, and before I could process it, I felt his lips on mine. It was a brief kiss, full of hesitation and mixed emotions, but also of sincerity. When he pulled away, he looked at me with eyes full of fear and regret. I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that, he said quickly, walking away. I was in shock, not because of the kiss itself, but because of what it meant. I knew that moment was going to change everything between us. But I didn't want Diego to feel bad about something that had clearly come from deep inside him. You don't have to apologize, Diego, I said, approaching him. It's all right. He looked at me, surprised, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. We spent a while in silence, sitting by the lake, trying to assimilate what had happened. Finally, I decided to break the ice. Is this the first time you've felt this way about someone? I asked. Diego nodded, still avoiding my gaze. I've never felt it before, let alone from someone as close as you, he admitted. It was a complex situation, full of contradictory emotions. On the one hand, I was flattered and touched by Diego's confidence. On the other hand, I knew that this was going to complicate our relationship in a way that neither of us was prepared to face. That night, we returned to the house in silence. Neither of us mentioned what had happened, but the atmosphere between us had changed. There was a palpable tension, but also a sense of closeness that had not been there before. Don't forget to subscribe and like us for more content like this. Let's continue. In the days that followed, we tried to act normal, but it was impossible to ignore what had happened. Whenever our gazes met, there was a silent understanding, as if we were both waiting for the right moment to talk about it. Finally, the last day of our vacation arrived. While everyone was busy packing and saying goodbye, Diego and I found a moment alone. We sat on the porch, just like that first night, and he was the first to speak. I know what I did was wrong, but I can't help how I feel, he confessed, his voice heavy with emotion. Diego, it wasn't bad. It was unexpected, yes, but it wasn't bad. The important thing is to be honest with yourself about how you feel, I replied. We looked at each other, and at that moment I knew our relationship would never be the same. But I also knew that this didn't have to be a negative thing. What we had shared was special, unique, and although I didn't know what it meant for the future, I was willing to discover it with him. Even though he doubted himself, we ended up kissing more and more. Then I proposed him to have his first time with a man. He was willing. He told me he wanted to do it for days. So I told him I was coming back. I needed to go to the bathroom. When I returned to the room, he was waiting for me with the condom in his mouth in a very perverted way. What followed that was a scene that I want to repeat many times more, but everything good has an end, so he was called because he had to go. When we said goodbye, Diego hugged me tighter than usual. It was an embrace full of unspoken promises, of feelings we were still trying to understand. As I watched him walk away, I knew that summer would be one neither of us would forget. Diego's goodbye hug was etched in my memory as a moment full of contradictory emotions. When we finally went our separate ways, I found myself going over and over what had happened during that vacation. I felt a whirlwind of feelings, from initial surprise to a kind of tenderness that I could not ignore. Diego was not only my cousin, but also someone with whom I had always shared a special connection. However, that connection now seemed to evolve into something deeper and more complicated. The next few days were strange. In our regular text conversations, Diego seemed more reserved, as if he was trying to put distance between us. For my part, I didn't know how to approach what had happened. I knew he needed his space to process his emotions, but I also worried that he might be lonely or overwhelmed. I decided to give him time, trusting that eventually we could talk calmly. A few weeks later, Diego surprised me by sending me an unexpected message. "Can we talk? There are things I need to tell you." My heart skipped a beat, but I quickly said yes. That same night, we called each other. His voice was shaky at first, but he gradually gained confidence. "I can't stop thinking about what happened," he confessed with disarming honesty. "I know it's complicated, that I probably shouldn't feel what I feel, but I can't ignore it." I listened to him in silence, letting him express everything he had inside. When he finished, I responded calmly, "Diego, what you feel is not wrong. It's important to be honest with yourself. Whatever happens, I will always be here for you." That moment marked a turning point. Although we knew the road ahead would not be easy, we were both willing to face it together. If you liked the video and this content brought you value, leave us a like and share it with your friends so they don't miss it.